face like a man and tell you how I feel.
Okay.
You understand me? Straight up like a man.
So what's the issue?
No sugar. Ain't no issue. If it was an issue, you'll feel me. I just come to let y'all know, stop, put some respect on my name.
Teachers are not getting paid or overworked, and some of them are not putting the effort out because there's some of them are the worst teachers in the country.
I don't agree. I'm here to defend teachers. You are full of
She had a fat. Yeah, see that, bro. Hold up, man. Don't talk about Mercedes.
Oh,
like
my bad.
that.
We all know interviews are one of the perks of being a top celebrity, and that rap gangsters are not left out of this. But there are times when these interviews go extremely south, with the parties starting off on a good note and ending up squaring off. Some of these interviews turn out to be extremely heated, with gangster rappers going back and forth with interviewers. In fact, one show that has a reputation of bringing out the worst in gangster rappers is The Breakfast Club. The show has starred celebrities like Birdman, Nicki Minaj, and Soulja Boy, and none of these episodes ended well. So without further fuss, let's get right into 10 most heated interviews on The Breakfast Club with gangster rappers. This interview is famously remembered as the shortest ever on The Breakfast Club, but its impact was anything but short-lived. So why did it leave such a lasting impression? Well, it all went down in April 2016 when one of the original gangsters of rap, Birdman, stormed into the studio with his crew, and the vibe immediately shifted. From the moment they walked in, you could tell things were about to get heated. Birdman, who's never been one to shy away from confrontation, came in visibly upset, and the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. He was clearly fed up with Charlemagne the God's ongoing criticisms of him and Cash Money Records. Criticisms that often cantered around issues like delayed album drops and financial disputes with artists under the label. It was no secret Charlemagne had taken shots at Birdman on air more than a few times, and Birdman wasn't just aware of it. He came in fully prepared to address it.
I wanted to talk to you, your man, in your face.
Absolutely.
You understand me? I knew a few places you was at. I could have pulled up, but I don't think that was gangster. Face like a man and tell you how I feel.
Okay.
You understand me? Straight up like a man.
So what's the issue?
No sugar. Ain't no issue. If it was an issue, you'll feel me. I just come to let y'all know, stop, put some respect on my name.
At one point, Birdman even hinted that he had some dirt on Charlemagne, suggesting that he could have had people handle the situation right then and there if he wanted. This led to wild speculation about whether he had actually sent others to confront Charlemagne behind the scenes. After throwing out a serious warning, Angela Yee's reaction showed just how real things were getting, looking visibly nervous, while Charlemagne, who's usually quick to clap back, decided to stay quiet, clearly recognizing how serious the situation had become. Meanwhile, DJ Envy tried to lighten the mood and keep things from escalating further, but the whole incident served as a stark reminder. Birdman is an OG in the rap game, and crossing him can come with some real consequences. Dame Dash made an appearance on The Breakfast Club, and he didn't come alone. He rolled up with his crew, and you could feel the energy shift the moment he walked in. From the jump, he was talking about his street cred and setting the tone. But things started to go sideways when DJ Envy tried to switch gears. He threw out a question about Jay-Z, and that's when Dame's mood took a sharp turn. It was clear Dame had no patience for the topic, feeling like he'd been asked about Jay way too many times, and he was over it. He snapped back at Charlemagne, saying, "Why are men so curious about other men? That makes no sense. I'm never worried about other men that much. Everybody knows my history with Jay. I already told you. I just don't want to talk about those days."
Why are men so curious about other men? That makes no sense. I'm never worried about other men that much. Everybody knows my history with Jay. Everybody. I already told you. The reasons why I don't want to talk about that, man. You got one of them hats on right now. I just don't want to talk about those days.
Even though Charlemagne tried to move on with another question, Dame was still stuck on the Jay-Z topic, refusing to let it go. But then things took a weird turn. After he finally wrapped up his rant about Jay, Dame shifted into a completely different vibe, diving into a monologue about self-improvement and being your own boss. It was like that Jay-Z question hit a nerve, and now Dame was fired up, schooling everyone on making your own money and not relying on others. It started to feel personal, especially toward DJ Envy. Since it's no secret he doesn't own 100% of The Breakfast Club, Dame kept talking about how if you take money from someone else, you're less of a man, and the tension in the room was rising. DJ Envy had to jump in and defend himself because it was pretty clear he was the one Dame was calling out. This went on for a solid half hour, with the temperature slowly but surely rising in the room.
Are you being selfish? Do you think your son enjoys you calling somebody else a boss? Don't you think your son would rather wake up with you and you could pick him up from school instead of having to do a 9 to 5? Wake up, it's 4 in the morning. Don't you think your son would love if his name was up there? Dash, or whatever your last name is instead of somebody else's? My pride is in my children.
But thankfully, after Dame had made his point loud and clear about being his own boss, things finally started to cool down. DJ Envy definitely gets put in his place in this one. Mike, who's made a serious name for himself as one of hip-hop's most radical and forward-thinking voices, found himself clashing with Envy over one of his more controversial viewpoints. Back in January 2019, Mike stopped by the Breakfast Club to promote his Netflix series Trigger Warning. During the interview, the rapper touched on a lot of the socio-political topics from the show, but things really heated up when the conversation turned to education.
That's why
I'm not talking about you.
See, so you can sit here and say the chump all day long,
I'm not
right?
talking about you. I'm telling you light skin and I'm getting your feelings, but I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about working class people. I'm talking again about working class people.
That's where Mike and DJ Envy found themselves on opposite sides of the argument. Envy, who's a firm believer in private schooling, argued that attending private schools gave him opportunities that he wouldn't have had in public schools, and it's that belief he carries into raising his own kids. He explained how he's doing everything he can to set his children up for success, thanks to the private education he provides for them. This is where Mike saw the perfect opening to drop what ended up being the biggest moment of the interview. Envy, clearly taking things a little personally, tried to argue back by throwing public school teachers under the bus, but Mike shut that down quickly. He made it clear that his argument wasn't meant to disrespect Envy, but was a broader statement about education. From there, Mike got a little more fired up, passionately dropping some serious knowledge and turning the interview into a lesson for everyone in the room.
Teachers are not getting paid, are overworked, and some of them are not putting the effort out because some of them are the worst teachers in the country.
I don't agree. I'm here to defend teachers. You are full of...
Beanie Siegel, whose real name is Dwight Grant, is an American rapper and actor who rose to fame in the late 90s and early 2000s as part of Rockefeller Records. Known for his street smarts and tough demeanor, Beanie made it clear to Charlemagne the God during one memorable Breakfast Club interview that he wasn't someone to mess with. Charlemagne, in his typical fashion, kicked things off by bringing up a rumor circulating in the hip-hop scene at the time. The word on the street was that Beanie only got to where he was because of Kanye West, and Charlemagne decided to press him for answers.
Say I'm not qualified to speak on it. I'm just observing it, but it just seemed like, you know, loyalty with you lies with who's providing you opportunity.
The backstory involved an incident before the interview where Kanye was at a dinner party in Philly with some friends when a couple of guys approached the table. They told Kanye to hand over his chain, but when he refused, they didn't back down. Instead, they just waited until Kanye was ready to leave, and tension started rising. That's when Beanie stepped in, showing up and letting everyone know that nothing was about to go down on his watch. He put himself on the line for Kanye, but over time, the loyalty he showed somehow got twisted into rumors suggesting he was ungrateful toward Ye. So when Charlemagne brought up the topic, things quickly took a turn. He kept talking over Beanie, not really giving him the space to explain himself fully. You could see Beanie's frustration building up as Charlemagne's interruptions continued, especially since it was clear Charlemagne didn't fully grasp the complexities of street culture. Beanie eventually raised his voice, passionately making it known that his lived experiences and street credibility weren't something to be taken lightly. He sternly warned Charlemagne against speaking on matters he didn't really understand, particularly when it came to navigating the intricate dynamics of the streets.
So don't talk out in that. Because you know why? Because you not from that cloth.
Mom, that's cool. I don't get
You not. That's why you don't understand that.
Charlemagne, for once, didn't have much to say after that. Beanie's words were powerful, emphasizing the importance of respecting people's backgrounds and experiences before diving into sensitive topics. It was a raw and authentic moment that highlighted the tension between mainstream media narratives and the real stories of those who've lived the street life. The next guest on the Breakfast Club who managed to deflect Charlemagne's antagonizing questions did so in a much softer way, but the fallout was on another level. That guest was none other than Friedro Starr. Now, when Charlemagne isn't busy making sexist remarks or racially charged comments, he often likes to bring up his guests' personal lives, especially their past relationships or sexual encounters. Not everyone handles it calmly, and Fredro was one of those who definitely didn't.
This your radio station.
Because you know why?
This your block.
I know it was an ambush.
You got ran off your own
I don't
block.
know what them guys had planned. So I had to get out the way.
You got ran off your own block, man. It's all good, though.
During his interview, Charlemagne decided to bring up Fredro's rumored hookup with Brandy, and that's when things took a sharp turn. Fredro wasn't having it. In response, he fired back by reminding Charlemagne of the time he got punched in the back of the head by 50 Cent. What started as a little back and forth quickly escalated, and the tension in the room rose fast. Fredro wasn't holding back anymore, pressing Charlemagne aggressively, making it clear he didn't want any nonsense from him. Charlemagne, who's usually quick to throw jabs, went quiet real fast, and it was obvious he was shaken up by the way Fredro flipped the conversation. You could tell by his body language that Charlemagne was uneasy about what might come next. The other hosts, trying to keep things from getting worse, attempted to steer the conversation back on track, but it was hard to ignore how inexperienced Charlemagne's comments made him look. At one point, he even admitted, "I don't know what those guys were planning, so I had to get out the way," showing just how rattled he was by Fredro's reaction. Soulja Boy's interview on The Breakfast Club was way calmer compared to the aforementioned rappers, but things took an interesting turn as it wrapped up. He couldn't resist doing what Soulja does best, bragging about himself, especially when the topic of his beefs came up. That's when the conversation started to get a little wild. DJ Envy and Charlemagne both agreed that his ongoing issues with Meek Mill weren't really that big of a deal, especially since Soulja had made a stronger comeback in music. But instead of rolling with it, Soulja didn't take that too well. Instead of laughing it off or agreeing, he got defensive, almost like a kid not getting the attention he wanted, and insisted that his beef with Meek Mill deserved more focus.
Or is that a fact?
I would think it's a fact.
Opinion.
No,
Ain't
I
no
would think
goddamn fact.
These are all opinions.
It's a fact when it comes to music. Musically.
Why? Stop all that yelling in here now.
Why did Meek Mill have a bigger comeback than Soulja?
Charlemagne, knowing exactly how worked up Soulja can get when talking about his own success, tried to keep things cool and not let the situation blow up. But it didn't matter what Charlemagne said because Soulja was in no mood to hear anything that wasn't straight up praise. The tension only cranked up another notch when they switched topics to Drake. Charlemagne, trying to keep things light with a few jokes, quickly realized that wasn't going to work for long. In a clever move, Charlemagne decided to stir the pot a little and play devil's advocate, just to see how far Soulja could take it. He threw in a few remarks that were bound to push Soulja's buttons, and just as expected, Soulja took the bait.
Middle name is Cortez. The first name of my name is Dre. The first two letters is C-O, Draco.
There you go.
He launched into a long, animated rant, making sure to set the record straight and let everyone know his side of things. By the end of the interview, what started out as a calm chat turned into a wild ride, with Soulja Boy putting his full personality on display until the very last second. Gucci Mane has had a few memorable moments with The Breakfast Club, and one of the most talked about ones involved him and one of the show's more controversial hosts, Angela Yee. So here's how it all went down. Back in 2010, Gucci did an interview with Angela for her SiriusXM show, Lip Service. At first, everything seemed chill, but that didn't last long. Before you knew it, things started getting a little flirty between Gucci and Angela, with some playful banter going back and forth. At first glance, it might have just seemed like harmless fun, but for some reason it felt a little more personal on Angela's end. She seemed like she was fishing for compliments, and the vibe got a bit weird.
It just took something, you didn't even feel it.
You can take it. Can you take it?
Oh my God. I'm sure. You know what they say about little girls, especially Asian ones.
Fat pussy.
Fast forward to 2017, and when Gucci made an appearance on The Breakfast Club, things got even wilder. He dropped some bombshells, claiming that he and Angela had an affair, and it pretty much shocked the whole room. DJ Envy, in his typical way of trying to lighten the mood with humor, joked about how everyone gets horny, but that didn't sit well with Angela. She wasn't having it and firmly denied Gucci's claims, sticking to her story that nothing ever happened between them.
Ask me what hotel you was at.
That is a lie. Never. You must got me confused with somebody else.
Meanwhile, Gucci added fuel to the fire by saying he had been banned from The Breakfast Club. Angela quickly shut that down, explaining that there was no ban, but she did feel Gucci owed her a public apology for what he said. Gucci, being Gucci, wasn't ready to back down and doubled down on his claims during a one-on-one interview with Charlemagne later on. While he did eventually apologize to Angela in his own way, he still stood by what he said and made sure everyone knew his side of the story.
You wrong, you wrong. I didn't apologize to Angela Yee because I didn't, I'm not, and I hated that she said that I was gonna apologize to her, but I don't know where she got that from because I didn't do nothing to her.
Not long after that, Angela ended up leaving The Breakfast Club, and of course, rumors started swirling that this whole situation with Gucci might have played a part in her decision to go. Whether or not that's true, the whole saga definitely added to Gucci's list of unforgettable Breakfast Club moments. Years ago, when Master P and Mercedes were dropping tracks, Master P made an appearance on The Breakfast Club to promote their music. But as usual, Charlemagne couldn't resist stirring things up with his controversial antics. He made a comment about Mercedes' appearance on the cover of her album Rear End, where she's posed bent over the hood of a classic car. Instead of just sticking to the music, Charlemagne made a remark saying, "Everyone was releasing music back then then accept Mercedes. But then he threw in a rude jab, adding, "She has a fat ass though." It was a totally inappropriate thing to say, especially because he was sexualizing her right there on live radio. Master P wasn't having any of it. He quickly shut Charlemagne down, letting him know that disrespecting his girl like that wasn't going to fly. He made it clear that Charlemagne had no right to comment on her body in that way, especially on a public platform like that.
Like she had a fat. Yeah, see that, bro. Hold up, man. Don't talk about Mercedes.
Oh,
like
my bad.
that. Let's go back to this, dog. Let's respect, because I'm not gonna talk about your sister, your mom, or nothing.
Got you.
You know, we need to. You know what I'm saying? Like that's.
As soon as Master P checked him, Charlemagne was left speechless. He went from his usual bold self to being pretty humble for the rest of the interview. Charlemagne's comment wasn't just out of line. It also shined a light on a bigger issue in the hip-hop industry: the constant objectification and demeaning of women. Master P was absolutely right to call him out, and moments like that help push the culture toward more respect and accountability. Hopefully, it empowers more people to stand up against this kind of disrespect. Last on the list, we've got Post Malone. Back when Post was still finding his footing in the entertainment industry, he landed an interview on The Breakfast Club. It was a huge opportunity for the 20-year-old artist to get some exposure, but for Charlemagne, it seemed like another chance to tear down the new kid on the block. However, things didn't quite go the way Charlemagne expected. The interview started off smooth, especially since both Charlemagne and Post Malone shared a mutual love for the Dallas Cowboys. But when Post mentioned that his father worked as a concession officer for the Cowboys, Charlemagne immediately started poking fun. He laughed at the job title, which put Post in a position where he felt like he had to defend his dad's job. To ease the tension, Post offered Charlemagne free tickets to a Cowboys game, even inviting him to the Sweet Box, which temporarily quieted him down. Seeing that this approach wasn't getting to Post, Charlemagne decided to switch things up. At the time, Post had cornrows, and Charlemagne couldn't resist commenting on them, saying, "That's why I think all white people with cornrows look stupid." And then, in another interview, he went on saying, "How are you a nappy-headed white boy?"
That's why I think all white people with cornrows look stupid. How you a nappy-headed white boy?
Post, caught off guard, simply responded with, "I don't know, man. It's the Native American in me." Charlemagne then tried to steer the conversation into a discussion about cultural appropriation, implying that Post was a culture vulture for rocking that hairstyle. Post, who wasn't trying to appropriate anything, calmly explained that he just liked the look. Not getting the reaction he wanted, Charlemagne took it even further by trying to bait Post into saying the N-word. But Post refused, calling him out for trying to get him into trouble. When all that failed, Charlemagne shifted gears again, this time taking aim at Post's girlfriend, who was in the studio. He implied that Post would eventually cheat on her now that he was becoming famous. But Post shut that down quickly, making it clear that he wasn't the kind of guy who would mess up a good relationship for a little bit of fame. After the interview, fans were buzzing and the whole thing quickly became a hot topic. Most people were impressed with how Post handled the situation with class and maturity, which only made Charlemagne look like he was just trolling for attention.